Good afternoon, everyone. We will start in a minute. We're just waiting for Sir Albert. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So, partners
Afternoon.
and colleagues, yes, we would like to welcome you all to this third MRV workshop, which is actually the last of our series of capacity building workshops towards the development of an effective monitoring, reporting, and verification system, particularly for our climate change mitigation measures. So for our house rules, may I please call on our colleague, Ms. Liz Silva, to briefly remind us of the relevant points to observe. So maybe, Liz, you may just flash the slide for our quick reminders. So I'm sure all of us are already all familiar with these rules. So at this point, may I request everyone to pause in silence for a short prayer. So dear God, thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. We are truly grateful for them. Thank you for allowing us today to meet and share our knowledge and time with one another in this workshop. May you extend your divine wisdom to our resource persons so that they would be able to impart effectively their God-given knowledge to all of us. May they be blessed as they continue to bring their expertise to people who need them. Bless the participants as well so that they would be able to glean the vital information from this activity. May you bestow your blessings after this workshop so that we may go out and spread what we learned in the spirit of your love and generosity. May we realize that this activity should glorify your name. Amen. So to formally welcome and open this activity, this workshop, may I please call on our Division Chief of the Climate Change Division, Mr. Albert A. Magalang, in behalf of our Director, William P. Conyado of the Environmental Management Bureau.
Yes, pleasant good afternoon to all our participants. So I will be reading the opening remarks by Engineer William Conyado, the Director of the Environmental Management Bureau, who cannot join us this afternoon because of some pressing tasks from the Office of the Secretary. But allow me to welcome you to this event. First and foremost, I'd like to greet our esteemed partners from the Ministry of Environment of Japan, the Overseas Environment Cooperation Center, likewise in Japan, and our partners from the private and industry sector, our friends from the Climate Change Commission, colleagues from the Environmental Management Bureau, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant and safe day to all of us. So we are delighted to seeing you all again for the third and the last round of our workshop on MRV for climate change mitigation. If you may recall, the first two MRV workshops surfaced the technical and policy aspects of setting up systems for MRV and facilitating cooperation between the government and the business sector. These are crucial steps to strengthen data and information on mitigation policies and measures, including their results. So such data and information allow us to gauge how far we are in terms of our path towards sustainable development, and also to inform the development of relevant policies and capacity building measures. Further, this also support the development of investable projects and programs that can be applied under various market and non-market mechanisms of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or the UNFCCC, and the other green banking and sustainable financing initiatives. So together we will now chart our path towards creating a shared strategy and framework for our MRV system. Towards this, we will hear proposed cooperation structures from the government and gather feedback from our business sector representatives. So for this gathering, we are pleased to learn more from different climate change mitigation initiatives being conducted by representatives from the private industry sector, both from Japan and the Philippines. So we be able to take on the relevant lessons and useful experience from these initiatives and apply in our respective circumstances. Finally, we will bring together these insights and agree on a plan to carry our work on MRV forward. Once again, we thank our advisors from the Ministry of Environment of Japan and the OACC for the expert technical advice and support. We also thank our colleagues from the government for your kind participation. Most especially, we thank our business sector representatives for our continuous collaboration, and we hope that we can strengthen this partnership as we tread the path towards securing a just and sustainable future. Thank you and mabuhay.
Thank you very much, Sir Albert Magalang. And at this point, we are also honored and pleased to have been able to be graced by our longtime partner from the MOEJ. So partners and colleagues, to warmly greet us, let us all welcome Mr. Chujihara Hiroshi, the current Director for International Strategy on Climate Change of the Global Environment Bureau of the Ministry of Environment, Japan. Sir?
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Ministry of Environment Japan, I'm honored to welcome all of you to the third capacity building workshop on the measurement, reporting, and verification of climate change mitigation under the partnership to strengthen transparency for co-innovation. We are very glad to have the third event in this PaSTI workshop series. It is our gladness to see that many participants from private sector and local government officials from the Philippines have a high interest in the transparency of GHG emissions. In addition, please let me congratulate my colleagues from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Environmental Management Bureau, for organizing 3 successful events. I cannot imagine how much effort you all put to organize these events, especially under these difficulties of COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much. Let me recap that in the first and second workshop, we learned the main concept of the MRV systems. As a Japanese greenhouse gas accounting and reporting system showcases, the main idea behind designing the MRV system is that it usually works as the mechanism for organizations by enhancing voluntary efforts and by conducting a self-assessment on the emission through a calculation process. So a MRV system should be something that is beneficial for both governments who receive the data and the private sector who reports this data. For today's workshop, we have invited 2 Japanese private companies, JFE Engineering and Marubeni Corporation, to share their experiences on how the self-assessment process of emission can actually result in the reduction of GHG by using their advanced decarbonizing technologies. JFE Engineering will share us their experiences in the waste sector and Marubeni in the refrigerations and air conditioning sector. I hope you can take some important lessons from them. Please let me thank here to the representative of these companies, Mr. Takahashi from JFE Engineering and Mr. Tamida from Marubeni Corporation, who kindly joined today's workshop in spite of their busy schedule. Thank you very much. Today, I'm looking forward to hearing from the Philippines companies regarding their own efforts to measure GHG emission and emission reductions. I hope that this workshop series will stimulate the co-innovation between Japan and the Philippines, which is the main target of the PaSTI initiative. Even though this is the last workshop of the 3 workshop series, so cooperation with Japanese and Philippines government will continue. We hope our further cooperation will be one of the tools for tackling the climate change. Thank you very much. Salamat po.
Thank you very much, Director Chujihara Hiroshi. Thank you very much. So before we proceed with our workshop proper, may I just quickly run through our objectives of the workshop, where mainly we would like to present the proposed NDC measures of the IPPU and waste sectors, particularly for the Philippines, and to gather inputs from the stakeholders in the development and design of the MRV system. And for our agenda, we will be tackling first for session 2 or the second session on the policies on promoting mitigation actions by the private sector from both the governments of Japan and the Philippines. And for the third session, we will be listening to the various climate change mitigation measures or initiatives from the private sector, also from Japan and the Philippines. And then this will be followed by a panel discussion on a specific elaboration of how these mitigation measures are being undertaken. Then we will be closing. And we, at this point, we'd also like to acknowledge our partners from the private or industry sectors, our colleagues from the national government agencies, especially our colleagues from the DNR, from the Environmental Management Bureau, regional offices and central office, from the Climate Change Commission, and also from the other sectors as well. And also our partners from Japan. So let us now proceed with the second session on the policies in promoting mitigation actions by the private sector. For our first presenter, we will be oriented on the proposed mitigation policies and measures both in the IPPU and the waste sectors in the Philippines. This will be presented by Mr. Albert Magalang from the Environmental Management Bureau.
Okay, thank you so much, Gigi. Thank you for giving me the floor once again for this presentation by the Philippines on the overview of the mitigation measures in the industrial processes and product use and waste sectors. So may I give you some information, brief information on the policies and measures which we have identified under the nationally determined contribution of the Philippines under the Paris Agreement. So in the outline of my presentation will cover the following topics. I'll discuss the Philippine climate change policies and programs, and then I'll go over the overview and mitigation measures in the sectors under our NDC, and then the challenges and needs by the Philippines in especially in operationalizing the NDCs. Okay, so we have got several climate change policies and programs in the Philippines, from the Cleaner Act to the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, Clean Water, and biofuels. And also we have all the law on renewable energy, the Climate Change Act itself. We have also the law on national disaster risk reduction and management, the adoption of the National Framework Strategy on Climate Change in as early as 2010. And then we have to issue National Climate Change Action Plan, NCCAP, in 2011, that has served as our blueprint in the pursuing our actions on climate change. And then with regards to inventory of greenhouse gases, we have institutionalized this inventory management and the reporting system as issued by the Office of the President in 2014, and also to support the operationalization of green economy. We have the Philippine Green Jobs Act of 2016, and very important is to engage our private sector, especially those who are already doing their sustainability reporting, which are published by virtue of the guidelines given to issued in 2015. And of course, the president has mentioned in his State of the Nation address in 2016 that addressing global warming will be his top priority. But of course, we have to consider the fair and equitable equation among developed and developing countries. So it must not stymie our industrialization. In fact, there should be the full recognition of sustainable development. Okay, let me give you the examples of mitigation measures in the IPPU and waste sector from which we have called out our nationally determined contribution. So we are looking at various IPPU sectors as provided by the IPCC guidelines, and we out of the list of this emission sectors, we have identified cement production and the use of high global warming potential refrigerants, particularly HFCs, in the refrigeration and air conditioning sector, which would give us the significant emissions, contributing to about 90% of the total emission of the IPPU sector. And next is as subsectors under this the overall IPPU sector, we have identified cement, which would engage the substitution of clinker in order to avoid too much greenhouse gas emission, and also as the installation of waste heat recovery in cement plants and co-processing of waste. And on refrigeration and air conditioning sector, we are looking at the shifting to low global warming potential refrigerants, the use of this. And hopefully under our conditional policies and measures, we can access facilities like the destruction facility for ODS and HFCs. And for the glass sector, we would like to work on increasing glass cullet use in glass production. And of course, very significant also is the contribution from the waste sector, which would comprise of the solid waste and the wastewater subsectors. So looking at the contribution of this, of the overall contribution of the waste sector, this wastewater would have 61% contribution, while the solid waste will have 39%. And under the solid waste subsector, we have identified 5 measures. These are composting of organic waste, municipal solid waste digestion of organic waste with methane capture, the methane recovery from sanitary landfills for electricity, methane flaring in disposal facilities, and the use of eco-efficient soil cover. And on the part of the wastewater subsector, we would like to expand the wastewater treatment facilities nationwide in compliance with the Clean Water Act. We're also looking at the use of anaerobic digester for methane capture and utilization in industries such as sugar refineries. Okay, what are the challenges and needs which we are anticipating, especially in the course of industry operationalizing our NDC? So we need to come up with enabling policies to support implementation of mitigation measures. Very important, next to these policies is the strengthening of coordination with the stakeholders. So we will maintain our coordination, our conversation with the stakeholder partners like the business sector, as well as the industries as well. And thirdly, there's still a need to enhance the data reporting and archiving systems for measurement, reporting, and verification, or the MRV. And very important, and the need that we would like to, we are continuously working on, is to access support as means of implementation as being provided by the convention and its Paris Agreement. So that's all. Thank you so much, colleagues, for your attention. Good afternoon once again.
Thank you very much, Sir Albert. And to share with us on the overview of policies in Japan is the current Section Chief of the Office of Internal Strategy on Climate Change of the Global Environment Bureau of the Ministry of Environment, Japan. Partners and colleagues, let us all welcome Mr. Tada Yuto.
Okay, thank you for your introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tada Yuto from the Ministry of the Environment, Japan. I'm in charge of PaSTI. So I'm happy to have this opportunity to make my presentation here again, as I did last time. In the first workshop, I introduced policies and activities by the private sector on climate mitigation and transparency in Japan. In the second workshop, I introduced Japan's mandatory greenhouse gas accounting and reporting system. Today, the third workshop, I will introduce the support being provided in Japan for emission reduction from the industrial processes and product use sector. Next slide, please. Okay. First, I would like to introduce the CO2 reduction potential diagnosis program and joint crediting mechanisms as the programs to support emission reduction from the IPPU sector. Lastly, I would like to introduce the Virtual Japan Pavilion, which is being held from the 3rd of this month. Next, please. First of all, I would like to introduce CO2 reduction diagnosis potential program that is conducted in Japan. This program is roughly divided into CO2 reduction potential diagnosis program by diagnosis agency and program to introduce low carbon equipment based on the energy diagnosis result. This program is mainly composed of the following 5 organizations. First, A, Ministry of the Environment, running the program. And B, the Diagnosis Support Organization, entrusted with the program by the Ministry of the Environment. And E, Diagnosis Agency, that carries out the energy diagnosis. And D, applicants to receive the energy diagnosis. And C, Diagnosis Result Reports Confirmation Organization, to confirm the contents of the diagnosis result reports. And next, please. And this is the overview of the diagnosis phase. The diagnosis support organization sets qualification requirements and publicly recruits and adopts diagnosis agencies. The diagnosis agency is obliged to have a qualified diagnosis expert, such as an energy manager or an energy diagnosis professional. In fiscal year 2019, 149 diagnosis agencies were adopted, of which 91 carried out. These are various diagnosis agencies, such as equipment manufacturers, equipment construction companies, constructing companies, and consulting companies, building management companies, and energy supply companies. The diagnosis support organization sets certain qualification requirements and publicly recruits and adopts consultation establishment. The diagnosis agency concludes a diagnosis contract with the consulting office and carries out a CO2 reduction potential diagnosis. In fiscal year 2019, there were 794 applicants, of which 759 received an energy diagnosis. Approximately 40% of the consultation establishments are factories, and the remaining 60% are non-factory establishments. After the diagnosis agency prepare a diagnosis result report, receive a check from the diagnosis result report confirmation organization, and correct it if necessary, and report it to the consulting establishments. Next, the consulting establishment will implement CO2 reduction measures based on the diagnosis result report. The diagnosis cost paid by the consulting establishment to the diagnosis agency will be subsidized by the Ministry of the Environment to the diagnosis agency through the diagnosis support organization. The diagnosis subsidy has a maximum amount per case. The total amount of diagnosis subsidized paid in fiscal year 2019 was 710 million yen. The consulting establishment must submit a business report to report the implementation status of CO2 reduction measures every year for 3 years after the consultation. And next, please. There are 5 types of CO2 reduction measures presented by diagnosis agency. One, first, operational improvement to improve the usage of equipment. Second, partial update or addition of functions to improve the functions of equipment. Third, equipment introduction to introduce new equipment. And then fuel conversion that uses fuel with a low CO2 emission. Last, low carbonization of electricity power that uses electric power with a low CO2 factors. Then, diagnosis support organizations are instructing diagnosis agency so that the type of CO2 reduction measures are not biased. In fiscal year 2019, approximately 7,000 CO2 reduction measures were proposed with 760 energy diagnoses. Of the proposed CO2 reduction measures, about 55% are implemented within 3 years after the energy diagnosis. And next slide, please. This is an overview of equipment replacement phase. First, CO2 reduction measures. Equipment introduction is expensive, so it is often difficult for the small and medium-sized business establishment to implement. So the Ministry of the Environment and Diagnosis Support Organization subsidizes 1/3 to 1/2 of the equipment installation cost, depending on the scale of the business owner. The Diagnosis Support Organization sets the qualification requirements and publicly solicits and adopts low carbon equipment introduction establishment. Applicants must have undergone a CO2 reduction potential diagnosis within the last 3 years. The 3 facilities of air conditioning, steam, and lighting account for 2/3 of the installed facilities. The maximum amount of low carbon equipment introduction subsidy per case has been set, and it was 20 million yen in fiscal year 2019. The total amount of low carbon equipment introduction subsidies paid in fiscal year 2019 was 810 million yen. Sorry. Okay, this is the main scheme of the energy diagnosis process. Next slide, please. Next, I would like to introduce joint credit mechanisms. In order to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement, significant emission reductions are necessary for the entire world, including developing countries. In mobilizing private sector, projects with this JCM model will provide support for projects that introduce innovative decarbonization technologies that have not been introduced. The JCM model project will provide subsidies to cover a part of its project cost in partner countries that introduce facilities and equipment to reduce energy-derived CO2 emission by utilizing innovative decarbonization technologies. After the installation of equipment, the project will be registered and the MRV measurement, report, and verification will be conducted. Then credit will be issued. At least one half of the credit will be transferred to the account of the Japanese government. Next slide, please. The joint crediting mechanism is a bilateral mechanism implemented by Japan and 17 partner countries. Japan has established the JCM with Philippines on January 2017. The JCM aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and contribute to sustainable development of the JCM partner countries through application of leading low carbon or decarbonizing technology. Companies from Japan and partner countries collaborate on GHG emission reduction projects in support of both governments. These emission reductions from the projects are quantitatively calculated, and part of the achievement is shared as carbon credits among project participants, according to their contribution to the project. The JCM has been implemented under Article 6 on the Paris Agreement and contribute to the ultimate goal of UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. Next slide, please. With far, total of 177 JCM projects have been developed in 17 partner countries, and of which 43% are energy efficiency and 47% are renewable energy. And the effective use of energy, transport, waste to energy, through F-gas recovery and destruction, and RED Plus project shares 10%. Next slide, please. At last, I will introduce the virtual Japan Pavilion from Wednesday, March 3rd to Tuesday, March 23, 2021. The Ministry of the Environment is holding the virtual Japan Pavilion Innovation for 2050 Net Zero, an online exhibition sharing Japan's environment technology innovations and environmental initiatives with people in Japan and around the world. And next slide, please. You can move freely around the online virtual Japan pavilions with an avatar. You can also communicate with other visitors, enjoying an experience that's a little different than typical real-world exhibition. I would appreciate it if you will visit the virtual Japan pavilion. Thank you. Next slide, please. This is all my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yuto Tada, for that very comprehensive presentation. So far, are there any questions or clarifications from the two earlier presentations? Is there anything you want to share or to clarify? If there's none, then maybe we could proceed. Oh, there is a rising of. Sir Gus. Yes, you may take the floor. Sir Gus.
Yeah, I'm Gigi. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon,
Good
everybody.
afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Tada-san. Thank you very much for your very nice presentation. And also, good afternoon to all distinguished guests. Just one clarification. So, in the presentation, there was a mention about shift of usage of fuel. My question is, what is the boundary between CO2 emission from energy or from combustion of fuel and industry?
Okay, sir. Anyone who could kindly respond to the question of Sir Mr. Addis?
Hi, Mr. Addis, could you repeat the question again? Sorry, this is Ricky from the OECC.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ricky-san. So in the presentation, there was a mention about shift or change of fuel to save for efficiency consideration. So my question is, where is the boundary between energy emission from combustion fuel, which is under energy, and industry?
Thank you very much. I see. I think I'm not 100% sure about this topic, but my guess is that this is based on the energy use. So we are considering in this case the electricity power usage as an energy. So the boundary is the use of energy in the facility.
Okay, thank you very much. I understand. Thank you very much, Ricky-san.
Thank you, sir. So there's another question from the chat box from Sir Crispin Lau, who asked that the presentation showed chillers system upgrade. So he's asking is this with the shift away from HFCs or more on the efficiency of the equipment? Who could answer, please? So is this shift in the chiller systems upgrade shift away from hydrofluorocarbons or more on the efficiency of the equipment? I think this is addressed to Mr. Tada Yuto.
Okay. Thank you for the question.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay. The PaSTI program, which I explained in this presentation, does not cover the F-gas reduction. This subsidy covers only the CO2 emission from the energy used, but the Ministry of the Environment, another division, has subsidy covering the F-gas reduction. So this is in this. So this subsidy does not cover the F-gas.
Okay. Sir Chris, was your question answered? Sir Chris Penlao, were you able to get the response?
Yeah, the audio was a little bit bad. Can you please
Yes.
clarify?
Sir Tada
I think,
Yuto, could you
yeah,
please? Yeah.
I think there was a relation to the support of the Japanese in the JCM program. But the question is it more on the refrigerant or on the efficiency of the equipment?
So may I answer regards to the Tada-san question? The GCM project is oriented only for the GHG emission. So in this regard, the F-gas we are talking here is not any refrigerant or the shift away from the HFCs. It's more the efficiency itself of the equipment, the use of energy part.
Yeah, clear. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have another query from Sir J. Peter Escultura. Regarding the use of low GWP refrigerants, is there a specific GWP number where we shift away from? Say, for example, GWP 700?
And also regarding to the Mr. J's question, unfortunately, we don't have resources today to answer regarding the refrigerants here with us. So I will forward this question to some people I know, and then hopefully we can answer you later per email or something.
Okay, thank you very much, Ricky-san. Any other questions? Although I see a hand raised, I'm not sure how to locate. Anyway, if you have further questions, kindly write it down on the chat box. Or is there anyone who would like to speak?
Jay.
Rolando, yes, Jay is raising
Okay.
hand.
Jay?
I'm sorry, my question was answered already.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So are there any other queries? If none, then we could proceed with the third session, where we will be learning and listening to the various mitigation or climate change mitigation initiatives undertaken by the private sector. So for this, we will be listening first to our partners from the government of Japan. So to start off is currently the General Manager, Business Development Group of the Overseas Administration Department of the JFE Engineering Corporation. Partners and colleagues, please all welcome Mr. Takahashi Jen.
Okay, hello and good afternoon, all the participants. So I'm Takahashi from JFE Engineering Corporation. So today, it is a very great honor to explain about some JFE engineering experience, especially for the GHG emission reduction using a waste heat recovery system in the waste sector and also the industrial business sectors. So I will share my slide. Okay, this is my presentation anyway. So So we JP Engineering is one of a major engineering company. So that is involved in a variety of infrastructure businesses. So for example, the environmental solutions, then energy sectors, and also the social infrastructures, recycling business. Maybe I can say the JP support the people's lives and industries around the world. So these are kind of some environmental solutions, such as the waste energy insulation system, recycling facilities, the waste heat recovery, and also lower left. Maybe so that some of the participants currently knows this project. This is a Paranaque, the wastewater treatment project in the Manila areas in the Philippines, your country. And also the renewable energy businesses. I think it shows the JFE's strong commitment to the development of decarbon societies. And from now on, let me show you two cases of a JCM project by JF Engine Corporation. So JCM scheme, Mr. Tada already explained to you about what kind of some business scheme about the JCM. The first, the waste to energy incineration plant in Yangon City, Myanmar country. This project, the very first waste to energy incineration plant in Myanmar, built by the JF Engine Corporation. And also it receives 60 ton per day municipal solid waste and achieve approximately 4,000 tons CO2 per year. The plant has been in stable operation since 2017. So this illustration shows the installation of WTE to avoid the emissions of methane gas associated with the disposed organic waste in a dumping site, mainly an open dumping site, and the electricity generated by the WTE plant displaces electricity from a grid, which is generated using a fossil fuel, resulting in the GHG emission reductions. The project was registered as the first JCM project of Myanmar in 2020, and it will achieve continuous GHG emission reductions throughout 15 years project period. In this plant, we are monitoring 4 parameters: quantity of municipal solid waste fed into the WTE plant, quantity of electricity generated by the project, quantity of electricity consumed by the facility, quantity of auxiliary fossil fuel consumed in this plant. Actually, only very few amount of fuels has been used in this plant, only for the starting time to burn this received municipal solid waste. And next project is waste heat recovery systems in cement factory in Indonesia. This facility is installed in a Tuban plant of PT Cement Indonesia, the largest cement company in Indonesia. And it will reduce GHG emissions by approximately 150,000 tons per year. The waste heat recovery system generate electricity through the waste heat recovered from a cement production process. Electricity generated from these WH systems replaces grid electricity, resulting in the GHG emission reductions of a connected grid system. The project is a JCM registered project in 2018, and it is expected larger GHG emission reduction for a long time in the cement industry sectors of Indonesia. our counterpart, Semen Indonesia company, is appropriately monitoring the quantity of the electricity supplied from a WHR system to the cement production facilities. So lastly, I hope that Jeffrey's experience will give you an idea of how to achieve the proper MRV in the industrial and waste sectors in Philippines. Thank you very much. And also, please feel free to contact me to my email address or some of my LinkedIn account. Thank you so much. This is end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Sir Takahashi Jen, for that very insightful presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next presenter is currently the Assistant to the General Manager of the new Energy Business Development Department of the Marubeni Corporation. Partners and colleagues, please all welcome Mr. Tamida Yasuhiro. Sir Tamida?
Yeah, nice to meet you. My name is Yasuhiro Tamida from Marubeni Corporation. Today, I'd like to explain our F-gas recovery and destruction project in Vietnam. Okay, I will share documentation. Okay, firstly, I'd like to introduce our company, Marubeni. Marubeni is one of the biggest trading company, headquartered in Tokyo. Marubeni is a global network, so we have 136 branches in 67 countries. Of course, we have office in Philippine Manila. This is a project, Marubeni project in the Philippines. We are engaged in a wide range of fields such as electric power, railways, and water supply. Next is...
Sir, maybe you could kindly, how do you call it? The presentation, you can make it bigger. I mean,
full screen, sir.
Show full screen. Full screen. You present the slide. How do you say it, Sir Ricky?
現在のスライドからっていうところを今クリックしてもらえますか。
現在のスライド
左からに、はい、そこです。
これですね。
ありがとうございます。
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Next, I'd like to explain the performance of the Marubeni's carbon credit business. Sorry. The reason why we are talking about emission credit, we believe emission credit is an incentive for F-gas recovery and destruction. During the first comment period of the Kyoto Protocol, we sold 100 million tons of emission credit. Regarding to JCM, we have experienced more than 10 feasibility studies and a demonstration project. Regarding to F-gas destruction project, we had a F-gas destruction project in China before. The project was registered as CDM, and 6 million tons of emission credit were issued annually. Before the presentation of our Vietnam project, I'd like to explain why MRV is focusing on F-gas recovery and destruction. Global emission volume from F-gas is currently about 1 gigatons per year, and it will double to 2 gigatons in 2030. And the effect of temperature due to F-gas emission is very big impact. Why F-gas recovery and destruction is so important? I think there are 3 points. One is GWP, global warming potential of F-gas is very high. Average GWP is 2,000 times compared with CO2. And the recovery and the destruction of the F-gas will achieve huge reduction in GHG. Second is reducing cost of GHG is very low. And third is technology of the F-gas destruction is a proven technology. From here, I'd like to introduce MRV's project in Vietnam. This project is supported by Ministry of Environment of Japan, and 3 years project started from 2018. It's an overview of this project. In Vietnam, there is no regulation for F-gas recovery and destruction, and F-gas was released to the atmosphere when air conditioners were destroyed. The purpose of this project is to establish an F-gas recovery and destruction scheme. In this project, we introduced a dedicated F-gas destruction equipment to Tuan Tan. That is a waste disposal company near Hanoi. GHG reduction from this project is about 6,500 tons annually. Regarding to the destruction capacity, we introduced the smallest equipment. That capacity is 3 kilograms per hour. So this project is just a demo project. The map is the location of the Tuan Tan, which is about 1 hour drive from Hanoi. This project consists 3 parts. The first one is the recovery and the destruction activity. Recovery activity is supported by Bishurai and Share and Daikin. Tuan Tan transport F-gas tanks from Share, Daikin, and then keep them. We installed the F-gas dedicated destruction facility this year. The second one is the JCM registration. We are formulating proper MRV scheme with developing JCM methodology. The third one is capacity building activity. We set up 3 working groups. We will explain detail later. This is the formation of this project. International consortium was made between MRV and Tuan Tan. Recovery is outsourced to Daikin and other F-gas emitters. E&E Solution and Green DC are appointed as consultant. We also ask a Japanese engineering company, Tonets, to install F-gas destruction equipment. This page is about policy proposal and capacity building. Policy proposal and capacity building is very important for sustainable recovery and destruction of F-gas. We have set up 3 working groups. Working group 1 is recovery and destruction scheme development, consideration, and registration. Working group 2 is capacity building for F-gas recovery emitters. F-gas recovery engineers. Working through is awareness rising for F-gas recovery. We also invite F-gas recovery engineers to Japan. Last week, the installation of F-gas destruction equipment was completed. This is a photo of equipment. The F-gas destruction method is a superheated steam system. And the photo on the lower left is a photo of burning F-gas. The chemical reaction formula is also shows for reference. This is the last slide of my presentation. I explained why F-gas recovery and destruction is so important. The answer is GWP of F-gas is very high. F-gas recovery and destruction achieve low-cost emission reduction. F-gas destruction is a proven technology. And the most important issue is how to recover F-gas. I think institutional design is important, and it is also important to give incentives. I think emission credit and the sales for recycled gas can be an incentive. So our goal is introduce other F-gas destruction technologies. For example, combustion with waste cement. Build up a mechanism for reclaim F-gas and selling recycled gas scheme. Expand F-gas recovery and destruction project to other Asian countries. At least 20 projects by year 2030. I will end my presentation. If you have any question, please contact me at my email address. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tamida Yasuhiro. Thank you very much. So we move on to the initiatives in the Philippines. So for our first presenter is currently the team leader of the Train Philippines. Friends and colleagues, let us all welcome Engineer J. Peter Escultura. Sir J.
Sir J, you are muted.
Hello? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud
Yes,
and clear.
sir.
So are you able to see my screen now?
Yes po.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to say thank you for the invitation. My name is J. Peter Escultura. You may call me JP. And I'm here representing Train Technologies, a multinational corporation. We have been in the industry since 1913, where our company was founded by James Train. And we have just celebrated our 100 years in 2013. And right now, our company has undergone a big change. Which we rebranded our company to Train Technologies last year. And I'm honored this afternoon to talk to you about our climate mitigation activities and also our commitments in 2030. So my topic this afternoon is about HFO chillers and our climate commitments. And at our company, sustainability is a core of our business. We do everything to make sure that our planet is well. We create products that are sustainable, and we create systems and solutions that help our Mother Earth. Actually, this afternoon, my presentation is around 26 slides. So forgive me for speaking fast. I will, because the time that has been given to me is only around 10 minutes. So I will be skipping some of the slides, but you are free to read the slides after my presentation. So let me talk to you about our Gigaton Challenge. So Train Technologies has a 2030 commitment to lead the industry and reduce our carbon emissions by 1 gigaton. So if anyone is curious about how big is a gigaton, it's actually 1 billion metric tons of CO2. It's as what the earlier speaker mentioned, the annual emission of the Earth. So this is a very big challenge, but we are optimistic that through our technology that we launched in 2013 and promoted in 2017 here locally in the Philippines, we see that we are able to meet this one. For our progress right now, we have reduced 20 million metric tons of CO2 based on our products because we are in the IPPU sector. And right now, 30 countries we are selling these solutions to. For this one, we already know about the Kigali Amendment, so I don't need to discuss about this one. I think one of the best ways for us to really combat this climate change thing is to educate ourselves about what has been done in the past, what are we doing now, and what will be done in the future. For this slide, you can see that the past is focused more on the ODP, and right now the transitional we are focused on the global warming. And right now the available technologies are, as we can see on the screen, R513A, R32, R452B, R454B, R666A, and so forth. And leaning towards the future, we see a solution for the ultra-low GWP solutions. And our commitment since 1991, as you can see on the right side of the screen, is to balance really ozone depletion, global warming, emissions, energy efficiency, because they are all really, really very, very important. This one is a slide for the Montreal Protocol, which I won't discuss anymore. The next slide is about our industry commitment. This one is an open letter to the California Air and Resources Board, wherein we, as you can see on the screen, is supported by many industry players in the US. You can see there AHRI, NRDC, Goodman, Daikin, Carrier, Lennox, and of course Train. So moving forward, we see globally that there are a lot of things going on. I asked earlier a question about the number of GWP that we should stay away from. And for Japan, I think it's GWP 750 by 2018. They have restrictions on this already. And in the European Union, I think the main driver there is refrigerant price, because we are seeing an increase in this one. So actions in other countries, we heard earlier about the F-gas. So no, I won't delve into this much longer. And for the HVAC industry, we see that as we move towards the new generation refrigerants, we encounter challenges such as the flammability of the refrigerant, of course the safety. We need to take a look at this one. Of course, also we need to prioritize the low emissions and then minimal impact on the environment. So what are the available options today? We see that on the screen HCFC, and now we have the HFC 410A. For now, we should focus first on the smaller capacity, the smaller ton ranges. We see that there are many available solutions. However, as I mentioned earlier, we experience this flammability concern. And when we look at the next generation alternative, we see on the screen that the 1234ZE is on the medium pressure side is a little bit flammable. It's considered 2L in the ASHRAE 34 standard classification. And as we can see on the screen, we see on the past refrigerants that we used, the brown one is the transitional, and then the blue one and the low GWP, and then the ultra low GWP for the green one. So forgive me, I only have 3 minutes left, so I will just move forward with this one. This is, I think, a very important slide. Actually, when you invest on an air conditioning unit, there is actually a big challenge there that is unseen at first. It is actually energy. Energy is a very big contributor to GHG emissions, and most people when we talk to them, they don't realize this one at first, but afterwards when we explain to the industry, and I hope they easily realize this after our explanation, they notice that the lifetime electrical cost is a very huge, really contributor to GHG emissions, aside from the refrigerants itself. Later on, I will show you a quick study on greenhouse gas emissions, comparing the standard HFC and a next generation refrigerant. This one, I won't dig deep anymore about the toxicity, but just to show, because this slide is coming from ASHRAE, but I have also a slide coming from OSHA, wherein we compare the toxicity of common refrigerants versus other chemicals. So I don't think there is no need to worry about the toxicity, because if you notice on the screen, R123 compared with salt actually is even more toxic than R123 in solids and liquids. Anyway, moving forward to the next generation solutions, we have for the low pressure, we have R1233CD as the this is the next generation. R514A is for also the next generation. And when we notice on the screen the global warming, the baseline, the most popular refrigerant nowadays, actually sad to say, is still R134A for the medium pressure. But the problem is with this one is the global warming potential is very high. So we do our best to move away from this option, because there are other technologies available right now, like 513A and 1234YF. So this one is just a slide about the change for HFC management. So for the UN, I won't discuss this anymore. Since my 10 minutes is up, I will just wrap up and show you a study. One is, can you see on my screen the PDF file? Yes, so I can see on the screen. This one is comparing two machines, 600 tons. The more efficient one is 0.55 kilowatt per ton versus the old technology, which is R134A. This is actually the first project in the Philippines where we supplied an HFO refrigerant. We cannot just name it here. So I'm sorry if I'm not able to name the name of the project. Anyway, comparing the power consumption, we see and notice on the screen that the kilowatt hour difference is around 22 million kilowatt hour in 20 years. So that's a huge number. And if we really compare the greenhouse gas emissions, it's very big. So how do we translate that? How do we translate the kilowatt input into greenhouse gas emissions? We use a conversion factor from the US EPA, and then we conclude for the 22 million metric tons of oh no, I mean 22 million kilowatt hour. It's equivalent to around 16,700 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. This is actually the indirect environmental impact, because when we study these kinds of things, we need to consider first the direct environmental impact, the impact which the the element or the chemical will have, the GWP number, and aside from that, the indirect environmental impact, which is actually the energy use. So when we use this one, when we did the study, R134A, using the refrigerant charge, where we have the record, it's 5,200 pounds this project used, and using a GWP of 1320, we arrived at around 4,600 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So adding both those numbers, we have the direct environmental impact, which is 4,600, and then the indirect impact, which is 16,600 metric tons of CO2. We arrive at 21,000 metric tons of CO2 in the course of operating this machine. So when you really invest in a air conditioning plant, you really need to consider the holistic approach in your investment, because it really consumes a large kilowatt in your system. So I guess my time is up. This concludes my presentation. I would like to thank everyone again for hearing me out. God bless.
Thank you very much, Sir JP.
Thank you.
Maraming
Do
salamat.
you have any questions?
I think we will have the questions after the last presenter.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For our another presenter is from the New Developments Project Manager and of Geocycle of Holcim Philippines. Partners and colleagues, please welcome Mr. John Alan Cuino. Sir John.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Do you see my presentation on screen?
Yes po.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so good afternoon again, everyone, from our colleagues from Japan and from the Philippines. So I will be presenting very quickly the potentials of co-processing as a mitigating measure in the Philippine cement industry. As Sir Albert has mentioned earlier, the cement industry is one of the biggest contributors in terms of GHG emissions in the country. So just very quickly, in 2015, Lafarge and Holcim merged. And in the Philippines, Holcim Philippines was retained as a member of the Lafarge Holcim Group. And part of our development beyond construction industry is the 4 pillars in sustainability, which is climate, circular economy, water and nature, people and community. So this is in support of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It is in this context as well that we pledged during the New York Climate Week, that we would be reducing our carbon emissions and help develop more green building solutions to help fight climate change. So these targets have been validated by the Science Based Target Initiatives, or SBTI, to which we committed 20% more aggressively the reduction targets compared to our 2018 baseline. So this is not anymore part of the 2% global temperature increase, but it's more targeting towards the 1.5 degrees target for global temperature. So what we intend to have is by 2030 to have the CO2 production per ton of clinker at 475. Currently, we are at 576 uh, ton CO2 equivalent per ton of clinker. So our main drivers in reducing the emissions is, of course, reducing the clinker content of cement using our pushing for blended cement, increasing the use of alternative fuels, and of course, increasing energy efficiency. So as you would see here in the factors influencing CO2 emissions, uh, based on our calculations, 1% clinker factor reduction actually improves our CO2 per ton by 7.5 to 9 kilograms of CO2. And you would see here every percent increase in thermal substitution rate is equivalent to 2 to 3 kilograms of CO2 per ton. So GeoCycle as a global arm, waste management arm of Lafarge Holcim, we have saved 8 million tons of emissions in 2018, which coming from 11 million tons of wastes co-processed. We are present in 50 countries, and in terms of thermal substitution, we are already at 18%. As for the Philippines, we are at 11% in 2020 with 128,000 tons co-processed last year. So we do have facilities in La Union, Bulacan, Misamis Oriental, and Davao, and even a transfer station in Cebu, which all have treatment, storage, and disposal permits and transport registration certificates. So we started our operations in 2003, and come 2015, we completed our automated feeding facilities both in Lugait and in Davao. So the customers we serve are industrial companies and service companies, which I would say would be our bread and butter. The agriculture sector and municipalities are here for our sustainability initiatives, which I would further explain later on. And we also partner with other waste management companies. Of course, this is to avoid wastes from the industries going into landfills. So, in a nutshell, co-processing is the recovery of energy from combustion, from waste materials, and recycling of materials from the ashes for use in cement manufacturing. So why is it co-processing? Because it is concurrently clinker production and waste management. And as you would see in the waste management hierarchy in the right, co-processing is still part of the resource recovery initiatives in waste management. So the technology complements existing waste avoidance practices, meaning we do not intend to get a lot of waste materials. We intend to get a lot of non-recyclable residual materials that have undergone reduction and avoidance practices. So these are, I would say, the remnants of those that cannot be really removed from the system. So we operate at temperatures, the 2000 degrees Celsius is our flame temperature, and we do not have any solid residue because as mentioned, the ash forms part of the clinker as well. And we have inherent flue gas treatment. We are quite lucky that the cement manufacturing conditions inside the kiln is perfect for waste management because the raw materials that we have are alkali or basic. So it means it neutralizes any emissions that would come out. Plus the counter current movement of gas and the fine raw materials act as scrubbers as well for the emissions that we uh, release. So, and also as part of the local and internal company directives, we do have as well continuous emissions monitoring systems installed in all our plants. So co-processing as well is globally recognized with the Basel Convention and even the Stockholm Convention mentioning co-processing as a sustainable waste treatment technology. And also these technologies endorsed by UNEP, GIZ, and SINTEF. Also in the Philippines, there is a DNR Administrative Order, DAO 2010-06, stating the guidelines on the use of alternative fuels and raw materials in cement kilns. So this is locally recognized in the Philippines as well. So as mentioned before, this offers local waste management solutions and promotes a circular economy. So some of the questions that might arise from the use of alternative fuels is on the emissions. So based on the local regulatory limit on carbon monoxide, SOx, NOx, dust, and even dioxins and furans, we can safely say that we are way below the local regulatory limit based on all our SEMS data and even third-party, independent third-party analysis, sampling and testing. So the possible contributions first is in terms of CO2 monitoring, reporting, and and verification. We use the Cement Industry Sustainable Initiative, which is composed of 1,000 plants or several cement companies to harmonize methodologies to measure, report, and verify the energy consumption and CO2 emissions. So this is under the CO2 protocol, which does the accounting and reporting standard for the cement industry. So this is based on the Greenhouse Gas Protocol designed by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and now the Global Cement and Concrete Association and the World Resource Institute. So this is also aligned with the GNR, or getting the numbers right, comprehensive public database on CO2 and energy information of the cement sector. So in terms of the use of alternative fuels in cement manufacturing, we see that the CO2 reduction potential of the alternative fuels is for every ton of biomass used, we reduce the CO2 tonnage by 1.5 tons. And the plastics with the use of plastics, we reduce CO2 by 0.4. So what does it mean? For our Bulacan plant at the same level that we are at in 2020, we reduced our emissions by 44,000 tons, and in Lugait by 90,000 tons for the year. So that's it for my presentation. I would be still here to welcome any questions after this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir John Alan. So we now move on to the 10-minute question and answer. Actually, we have a few questions in the chat box. So anyone could answer. The first one came from Sir Eric Raimundo of NPOP. He would like to ask if one can convert F-gas into electricity. Is it possible to convert F-gas to electricity? Anyone could answer?
This is JP. What do you mean about converting F-gas to electricity? Is it direct conversion or?
I think Sir Eric could elaborate more on his question. Sir Eric? Sir Eric Raimundo? Ayun. Direct conversion as in WTE, waste to energy.
Waste to energy.
Direct
So I'm sorry, I
conversion.
have no idea about this one. I only know about the what I presented earlier, that there is a calculator to convert CO2 emission into kilowatt or vice versa.
Okay. Sir Eric, is it okay?
Yeah, from I think the Japanese presenter, they were talking about the destruction, no? And then the recycling of the F gas. So if it can be utilized as energy and converted into electricity, then it's not only about destruction but recovering. It's just closing the loop. So I think if that is possible, then that will be a better solution, and that's the circular economy in motion, something like that.
Any reaction? If none, can we proceed to the next question? This is from Ms. Maray, the Licerio from GIZ. We also have Republic Act number 11058 on the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, which requires mandatory reporting for high energy consuming establishments. So her question is, if industry is open to mandatory greenhouse gas emissions reporting, including the reduction and sink projects in the country or in the Philippines? Is the industry open to mandatory GHG emissions reporting? Anyone from our presenters or from the body? Or from the industry sector?
Yeah, Ma'am Gigi, can I
Yes.
respond to that?
Yes, Sir Gus.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And so far, from what we know, I think this was mentioned in Director Albert's presentation. There is that sustainability reporting. Yeah, but the sustainability reporting right now is only limited to publicly listed companies.
Yes, sir.
So if the lady asking the question would be kind enough to go into that SEC memorandum, she can see for herself how detailed is the reporting. And yes, there is emission reporting there. Thank you, Ma'am Gigi.
Okay, Sir Gus. I would also like to proceed with your question, Sir Gus, on the chat box, where you mentioned or you thanked Takahashi-san for the interesting presentation. I think, and the question is, I missed the. Is the project is about the project in Indonesia? So he would like to know the emission factor of the power grid where the project is located. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chu. So this is Takahashi speaking. Actually, I already answered for Mr. Adi-san's question in the chat box. But actually, we are using some emission factor 0.903. This is a kind of some emission factor at the time of project registration in the year of 2018. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And also from Sir Gus, he would like to inquire on the potential of carbon price going up and by how much per ton in view of the collapse of the carbon market. So this is related with the CDM CERs. So he would like to know the potential of carbon price going up or increasing, and if so,
Yeah,
by how much? Thank you.
yeah, this is Tamida speaking from MRV Corporation. I am in charge of the carbon trading. So, yeah, at the moment, carbon credit price is about $10 per tons at the moment, and also we have some business in Japanese market. At the moment, Japanese market carbon price is about $20 per tons. So I think there's some initiative, for example, CDP and RE100 and Paris Agreement. So near future, I think the carbon prices are going up. And in Europe, EU ETS price is more than 40 euro. So near future, I think carbon market of the global market will be achieved to such kind of price. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think the next question is again from Sir Eric Raimundo. I think this will be addressed to Sir John Allen. How many percent alternative fuels are being utilized in the cement industry in the country?
Thanks for that question, Sir Eric. Unfortunately, I cannot answer for the whole organization, as each cement manufacturers would have their own data to be reported. What I can share, for example, is that for Holcim Philippines, our technical capability is at 30% thermal substitution for each of our cement plants. So the technical thermal energy substitution would be very dependent on the type of kiln that is being operated and the various setups that has been provided per plant. So it's very plant specific and very operation specific, if I may say.
Thank you very much, Sir Alan. And we would just like to share again from Sir Eric's comment is that this coming April, establishments will now have to report energy consumption to the Department of Energy or DOE under RA 11285, and that the DNR can convert this data to get the carbon footprint of compliant establishments. So any other comments, thoughts you would like to share? If none, then we can move on to the last session, which is the panel discussion to be facilitated by our partner from OECC, Sir Jiro Ogahara. Please take the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Jiro Gahara. I am a senior researcher at the Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, and I will like to facilitate today's panel discussion. So, first of all, I would like to confirm the panelists. I believe we are going to have Mr. Gen Takahashi from JFE Engineering, also Mr. Yasuhiro Tamida from Marubeni. From the Philippines side, my understanding is that we are going to have Mr. J. Peter Escultura from Train, Philippines. Also Ms. Stephanie Fragoso from Holcim Philippines. Gigi-san, if this is correct, then I can proceed with the panel discussion.
Yes, Sir Jiro-san, yes. You may please proceed.
Thank you very much. Okay, so As it was explained already, this is the third workshop on a series of three workshops, and today's workshop is titled Mitigation Measures for the IPPU and Waste Sectors. We had very interesting presentations, two from the Japanese side and two from the Philippine side on the technologies in these specific sectors. And I would like to go to these two main questions, but first let me remind you, I would like to go one step back and remind you that the purpose of these meetings and the capacity building, etc., is to move forward on the development and design of MRV systems in the Philippines. In that sense, I will go first with the first question, which says, what does climate mitigation measures mean for your company, and why do you conduct these kind of measures? I would like to start with two colleagues from the host country, Philippines. May I ask this question? What climate mitigation measures mean for your company from the perspective of contributing to this design of MRV systems in your country? May I ask first Mr. Escultura from Train Philippines?
Thank you, Jiro-san. It is very nice that you asked about this one. Climate mitigation measures, the meaning to it for our company is this is very, very important. Our purpose has always been to challenge what is possible. So we are leading this one in the industry. Actually, we are the first ones to introduce the low GWP alternatives. So it is really very, very important to us. Why we conduct it is because it is part of our culture to serve the common good for mankind and to combat this climate change.
Thank you, Mr. Escultura. Ms. Fragoso, can I ask the same question? For your company, what does climate mitigation measures mean, and why do Holcim conduct it?
Yeah, so for Holcim Philippines, us being a member of the Lafarge Holcim Group, sustainability has been part of our core values. No, so basically, as a global leader in the industry, we have a key role to play to address today's climate crisis. So as mentioned by my colleague, Mr. Alan Cuino, we have science-based approved targets on CO2 reduction, and further from 2030 and beyond, we have partnered as well with the SBTi to develop a roadmap for 1.5 degrees Celsius scenario as aligned to the Paris Agreement. So as mentioned, our targets on 2030 is to reduce our specific net CO2 emission by 475 kilogram per ton of cementitious material that we produce. So for Holcim Philippines, this means that this is 20% reduction from our 2020 level. So I would say it's a very ambitious target. However, we need the support of the government in terms of enabling policies, and as also already mentioned by Sir Albert, we have a good policies, but I believe we need a more effective implementation. Yeah, and in terms of GHG reporting, as mentioned earlier, because we are a publicly listed company, we report it already to the SEC, and we're actually also launching our sustainability report this year with data from last year. So yeah, CO2 reduction is really part of our core business strategy, and we're actually working now with our global team in terms of developing our roadmap and how to actually achieve our targets because we need, for example, resources like CapEx projects to be able to support us and achieve our climate targets. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Stephanie. I will continue with this discussion, but first, let me ask the same question to our Japanese colleagues. I guess partly it has been answered from their business mission, etc., in what's going on in Japan. But you also saw in many of the slides that they are trying to enter many of the Asian countries and other countries as well. So let me start with Takahashi-san. What does climate mitigation measures mean for your company?
Thank you very much, Ogahara-san. For our company, I mean, so the JP Engineering Corporation, so we have many various type of some technology and solution for such kind of some climate mitigation measures, such as, so that I already explained about such kind of technology, for example, waste energy initiation system or waste heat recovery system, and also the recycling business, something like that. And also, if I considering some JFE group itself, so the JFE group also have some steel making company. So such kind of some, so the steel making process may generate the huge volume of GHG something. So as a JFE group, such kind of climate mitigation technology and solution is also very important. So we JFE Engineering will be some very aggressive to install such kind of some I can say the solutions not only in Japan but also the global market, not only for some Asian countries but also in the global market as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Takahashi-san. May I pass the question to Mr. Tamida from Marubeni, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I think climate change measures are important for business and also necessary for each company to operate sustainability. Marubeni also has a sustainability department and also just starting for under consideration for Marubeni will making having the some emission target for 2030 or 2050. So previously Marubeni is a trading company and also we are selling the carbon credit to other company. But near future, I think Marubeni is also the purchaser for the carbon credit, I think. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamida-san. Okay, so for this first question, let me summarize what I understood from the answers of our panelists. So I think there is a common thread here, and all these companies, not only they found an opportunity to work with green technologies, etc., but also they are very conscious of the importance of reduction of emissions, compliance with the country's goals on, for example, sustainability, SDGs, perhaps national determined contributions. So one of my conclusions is that especially big companies are well aware of the country's goals towards mitigation objectives and of course the Paris Agreement, etc. Why I am mentioning this is it's related to, for example, what Ms. Stephanie was mentioning, what the companies are requesting from the government in order to move forward this discussion. The private sector needs clear signals from the government. And I believe this kind of workshops, the purpose of these workshops is to try to pick up all these elements and try to move forward and see how we can fill the gaps that currently exist. So with that said, I would like to go to the second question, which says, how does the country's climate policy affect your company? How important is the communication with the government? Again, maybe this question I can start with the Japanese side. Maybe Takahashi-san, when you try to enter, for example, this our colleagues' countries in the Southeast Asia, how the climate policy of that specific countries affect your company?
Thank you very much. So I think, of course, some such kind of communication with the government is very important, and also sometimes it's very supportive for the contractor, such as some JP Engine Corporation. Maybe we may sort of remember the scheme of a GCM or some joint credit mechanisms. So the GCM scheme that provides some kind of some subsidy program for such kind of some climate, such kind of some project. It's a very supportive for such kind of private sectors. So I'd like to mention sometimes such kind of some the climate related project is a little bit some very challenging to mobilize some kind of money for some fund or some budget, something like that. In such case, such kind of some public sectors, the supporting program is very good for such kinds of private sectors. So yes, so that maybe I can say that such kind of some communication with some such kind of public sector, especially for the government, is very important for the private sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Takahashi-san. Tamida-san, from the perspective of Marubeni, how does the country's climate policy affect your company? Can you please let us know?
Yes, we do some JSON project. So one is Red Plus project, that is, and another one is F-gas recovery and destruction project. So these two projects is very related with government of the developing country. So I think gas destruction, recovery and destruction project is also that is a very important of the regulation for the government developing country. So I think GG base relationship is a very important. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tamida-san. So, Mr. Escultura, can you start telling us how does the country's climate policy affect your company?
Yes, Jiro-san, the Philippines climate policy affects our company very much. First, in terms of the products that we can import, and the second is the greenhouse gas emissions that we have to limit ourselves, and also discussions with the government is very important in terms of awareness of these new technologies that we are promoting, and also the market coverage of this one. If we channel what we know towards the industry leaders via means of discussing with the government, then the adaptation of these new technologies will be faster. We can realize faster returns for our own investment in these new technologies. So I think that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Escultura. Ms. Stephanie, can you tell us how does the country's climate policy affect your company?
Yeah, so basically, well, as already mentioned by some of the speakers here, it's really a big factor. We have to align, for example, our initiatives to the country's climate policy, and these kinds of dialogues like this workshop and other dialogues that we are involved at. For example, we are part of the ongoing dialogue on determining the nationally determined contribution of the cement sector. So I believe this is very important as well. And we look forward for more collaboration with the government, for example, on knowledge sharing, technology sharing, capacity building opportunities, and also one big that I want to highlight also is the alignment, for example, on the different agencies in terms of implementing the current regulations of the government. So I believe dialogues are really important, especially in relation to climate policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stephanie. And thank you to all the participants. Those have been the two main questions. Let me add some of my personal opinion based on the answers and based on the questions posted in the chat. So of course, coordination, communication, and alignment, as Ms. Stephanie mentioned, are very important. And if the government works on this efficiently, then the private companies, the private sector has more opportunities to foster this kind of collaboration and start new projects, can introduce technologies, etc., etc. It is already well known that the partnership between the government, the private sector, academia, it will benefit all of us. And now in this global era, what any individual country does, it will affect to the rest of the planet. So those are some of my conclusions. I would like to mention specifically about the Japanese experience in developing countries, especially in Southeast Asia, with the initiative of the JCM. This is a very clear example of how some initiatives taken from the private company in developing countries will require a strong collaboration from the local government. And it is very important, not only for the Japanese companies, but for the Japanese government, to make it very clear that my previous conclusion, that it will benefit all of us. There has been questions about carbon credit, but let me be very clear that one of the reasons of Japan withdrawing from the Kyoto Protocol was this collapse of the carbon price. But through this kind of bilateral agreements, we are working on a different scheme and determining the carbon price. This carbon price, carbon exchange, will benefit all, and the main idea is that 50% will benefit, or it will be taken for the Japanese side, and 50% for the local partner. So I think it's a very clear example of a win-win situation. I hope all of us can realize that. And I also hope that this can serve as an incentive to start new kind of initiatives. I was very impressed to see the presentations of the Philippine partners and how they are introducing state-of-the-art technology in order to reduce emissions. Gigi-san, I don't know how if we have more time for discussion.
I think we can move on to the next topic to be shared by Ricky-san, if there are no other comments from the body.
Is
okay?
there any comment from our panelists?
Anything more? Okay. Thank you very much.
So yes, thank you very much to all the panelists, and thank you to the organizers to give me the opportunity to facilitate the session.
Thank you very much, Jiro-san and the panelists. So for the information of everyone, this series of capacity building workshops on MRV were made possible through our engagement in the project on the Partnership to Strengthen Transparency for Co-Innovation, or PaSTI, through the Ministry of Environment, Japan. So PaSTI supports developing countries to strengthen transparency action with promoting the engagement of the private sector, based on utilization of low carbon technologies and know-how in a collaborative and co-innovative manner or co-innovation. So to give us a wrap up of these activities that we had, these capacity building workshops and the learnings that we have gained, I am pleased to present to you our partner from the OECC, Mr. Ricky Nakajima, to share with us. Sir Ricky?
Yes, hello. I hope you can hear me well. Just a moment. Can you hear me?
Maybe just speak a little louder.
A little bit louder. I put my microphone closer to me. Now, is it clear?
So far, yes.
Okay. All right.
Manageable.
Sorry, my bad. Okay, so to wrap up this PaSTI workshop series on MRV, I just made few slides going over the object and background of this workshop. I really appreciate all the participants for their efforts to join and put inputs to this workshop. I never imagined this workshop will be this much success with 3 consecutive big turnout. So here's the overview. So outline of this PaSTI project, as Gigi-san explained, the Ministry of the Environment Japan and the Philippines Department of Environmental and Natural Resources exchanged the letters to agree on bilateral cooperation under PaSTI initiative on November 2019. And last year, it was the first year of these substantial activities. Activities under PaSTI Philippines, we focused on the acceleration of the capacity building of the private sector, especially the waste and the IPPU sector, which is the Environmental Management Bureau of DENR is in charge of. The background, so why in those areas? Because the DENR is named as the lead agency for the GHG inventories of the waste industrial processes and the land use and forestry sectors by the Executive Order number 174 in 2014. And the DENR Environmental Management Bureau is currently seeking tools for the private sector to report the facility level GHG emission reductions to achieve the NDC targets. So we conducted 3 online seminars. First one was on October 15th. We called it MRV 101, Understanding and Appreciating MRV. There were presentations regarding a very basic idea of what is transparency, what is MRV, how do you design MRV. This was then moved to the second workshop with some examples from Japan's mandatory reporting system. And then today's workshop is the third one. Today's workshop, we focus just a little bit more regarding the incentives, what some benefits companies may able to have if they properly controlling the GHG emissions and in a transparency manner. Including this workshop video, we will upload this on the YouTube, and the link to the YouTube we will provide you later after this workshop through Secretariat. So moving forward, this is a small list of measures of supporting transparency through PaSTI. As Gigi-san mentioned, partnership to strengthen transparency for core innovation PaSTI highlights added value to existing initiatives on transparency and promotes engagement of the private sector and local government by identifying incentive mechanisms and developing critical tools. So to continue working on the Philippines, we will coordinate with our partners in Philippines for further support in regarding of strengthening the transparency. Here are some expectations and plans for 2021, which is still under discussion. But we are thinking we want to have further capacity building of private sector and local governments officials on MRV. An opportunity like this workshop, we also facilitate the climate change dialogue between public and private sectors, which one of the panelists mentioned is important to move on to the designing of the MRV framework. We also have some ideas of maybe establishing MRV framework steering committee, which the Department of Energy and Natural Resources, Environment and Natural Resources currently planning to have as a facility level GHG emission and mitigation MRV. We also want to facilitate coordination meetings between DNR and CCC because those agencies, those organizations needs to work very close together to have a whole government approach of those MRV systems. We also want to conduct assessment study on potential collaboration between the reporting on NICDs, which is the system from the Climate Change Commission, and sustainability report, which some of the companies already conducting and reporting their GHG emission to the Securities and Exchange Commissions. By aligning those two reporting together, maybe we can have this as an incentives because reporting to two different initiatives in two different ways will be very burdensome for the companies. But if we can have those efficient matters in the reporting, then this would be potential of incentive. So we would like to conduct the assessment study on this. This was my presentation. I will give back my microphone to Gigi-san. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sir Ricky, or Ricky-san. I would just like to share our way forward on the part of the environment and natural resources. So as you would see on the screen, what Ricky-san had mentioned earlier on the specific activities are actually subsumed on these three main targets or goals that we intend to have with this PaSTI project relating to or towards the development of an MRV framework system. So first is to conduct a study to improve existing reporting system in two sectors covered by the DNR, which is on the IPPU and the waste sectors. And then these are the activities which had also been mentioned earlier. So we have to really coordinate regularly or often with the Climate Change Commission in terms of the NICDs, which is their system for reporting. And then, of course, ultimately, we would like to be able to come up to design and improve and more effective reporting system for these two sectors. And then for the capacity building, we have already started, but as I've mentioned, we have a long way to go. We have just started these three main capacity building. And as mentioned earlier, we will be further doing more intensive capacity building activities. Maybe it might be subsector, it would be more specific on the sectors. Like for example, cement, pulp and paper, or other subsectors under the IPPU and waste sectors. And of course, for this, we would like to develop policy brief for implementation. And of course, lastly, to be able to develop incentive mechanisms for the private sector engagement. Of course, it would also be important for us, for the private sector to be motivated, not to be able to undertake these mitigation measures and to also join or apply or practice this MRV system to be able to have a more robust and actual data, which is very important for our programs on climate change mitigation, especially for our greenhouse gas inventory. So these main goals were actually from the initial suggested activities that we have presented in line with our submission of our letter of intent through this PaSTI project. So maybe we have a year or more years to come in order to be able to have this effective MRV system. And with all your cooperation, with your support, then we are confident that we could be able to achieve this goal. So, Sir Ricky, I think you also have another what to call this presentation to make on the international PaSTI.
Yes, Gigi-san, thank you very much. Let me share my screen soon. Regarding this is a short announcement. I think Mr. Tada also had a presentation on this, but in the Japan virtual Japan pavilion, we will conduct a PaSTI international workshop on March 10th. The starting time is 10 a.m. in Manila time. This is an event to stocktake all the current transparency activities conducted in ASEAN region. If you are interested in this kind of event, you all are welcome to join us. I think it is a quite interesting opportunity to just walk through as an avatar in this virtual exhibition. There are also some interesting projects conducted by some private companies regarding GHG reduction and things like that. So if you have time and maybe some interest, we are very happy to invite you all to this PaSTI International Workshop on March 10th. Further information I will provide you through the Secretariat also. So I'm looking forward to see you all here too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ricky-san. And as we move to the concluding part of this workshop, may I again request Ricky-san for your final message? Any words from you on in behalf of the OECC?
I will turn my camera on a little bit. Hello, thank you very much for all your participation. As I said so many times, it is really great workshop series. What we were able to conduct with the support from the Ministry of Environment Japan and also our partners, the Department of Energy. Department of Environment and Natural Resources Environmental Management Bureau. I last time visited Philippines was actually over a year and a half ago. I think last year November. So I already miss so much visiting Philippines. But I hope I can visit soon and have another sinigang soon to eat because I miss that soup so much. Thank you very much for your participation. We definitely keep in touch and I hope we can plan another interesting workshop series next year also for your interest. Next fiscal year, I mean, so hopefully we see early summer soon in this maybe virtual workshop. If not, hopefully also in physical workshop in Philippines or in Tokyo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wiki-san, and thank you for your support and cooperation. I think before we wrap up or before we close, I think Liz would like to take our photos. Liz, is it possible?
Tita,
Yes.
yes. Kindly turn on your video so I can screenshot.
Ayaw. Just say if it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Liz. So in behalf of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Environmental Management Bureau, we would like to express our appreciation for your participation to this third MRV workshop. Thank you very much po, and more power to our partners, OECC, MOEJ, and the private sector. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Coming.
You. Stay
And
safe,
please don't
everybody.
forget to answer our survey results on the chat box. Thank you. Thank you to our panelists, our presenters. Maraming salamat po. And apologies for the short notice. But then we are very happy you were able to come po. Si Sir Alan, si Sir JP, si Ma'am Stephanie. Maraming salamat po.
Salamat po.
Hi, Sir Dwight. Hello.